of co-sponsors of the bill actually jumped off the bill and decided to vote no. Right? I mean, I don't know how many of you are actively involved. That almost never happens. It gives you a sense of how much they must have been hearing from their people. And so what we know is that although, first of all, we know that any negative message about marriage will get widely relayed, and even our people won't hear the good news unless we tell them. But secondly, we do see some changes in the national polling numbers, but we're not seeing it reflected on the ground. And I think what's actually happening is that people are becoming afraid to admit they think marriage means one man and one woman. And that's to a stranger on the phone. But in the privacy of the polling booth, we're still finding that the number of people who believe this is an important issue and will stand up and vote for it is much larger on our side. So this is an issue which wins over and over again. You have to have faith in it. And I want to just say that what NAM has done, of course we work with many people, Family Research Council, the local state family policy councils, but particularly the Catholic bishops have been amazing leaders on this issue. They've taken the media hits for it, and their people, the faithful Catholics in the pews, do listen. Not all of them, but we are seeing that the church-going Sunday Catholics are holding on this issue, and I think that's a direct response to the messages they're getting from the bishops.
Thank you, Maggie. So now we're going to transition from marriage to the life issue, and from that we'll hear from Larry Cirignano, who's a grassroots activist, and then Deal Hudson for a broader perspective of the Catholic demographic. Huh? Marjorie? Don't have it on me. Marjorie's going next.
Boy, girl. It's the ladies.
Ladies first. For those of you who don't know Marjorie Dannenfelser, one of Newsweek's top 10 faces of the Christian light. Is that a political equivalent of People magazine? But Marjorie leads the pro-life Susan B. Anthony list, and I'll let her articulate for you all what they do, because I think it's better for the head of the organization to articulate the mission. But you know, Marjorie, I hope you also share with us your thoughts on the so-called truce that some are calling for. In fact, that one of the speakers that we all heard today alluded to in his remarks, without maybe necessarily using the word truce, but that was what the intent of his comments were, and talk about the life issue in a similar manner to what Maggie just focused on with marriage.
Thank you. I love what Catholic Advocate does with Matt and Deal, realigning the faith in terms of conscience, but also in action. Because there's no cheap faith and there's no cheap grace. We have to work for what we believe in, and they are putting those beliefs into action. And I want to also say something about Maggie. Maggie is someone who was she says is an unlikely warrior, and I think many of us in this room weren't we? We didn't know we were going to be doing what we're doing, but we knew we had to. It was like being drafted. You see no one doing it. Maggie had the intellectual wherewithal to do so, and wasn't necessarily someone who thought of herself as an activist. The same is true of Deal. And what she has done to transform the country with that is amazing. And Deal, without him, I'm not even sure I would have converted to Catholicism, because I kept reading Crisis Magazine and agreeing with it, even though I didn't know one Catholic where I came from in Eastern North Carolina. So, thank you. Today we did hear Haley Barbour say something that I planned on saying something else, but I think it's important to talk about what he said. What he said was beautiful in many ways, a very beautiful Southern tone, which I admire very much. The thing is the thing. Talk about what the thing is. Well, what is the thing? The thing is the values that we all believe in, that we're trying to translate into political power and to put into action. What he also said was purity is the enemy of winning. He said winning is the goal. Now, many of these things are on their face arguable, certainly. But what I would hate for us to do as a conservative movement generally, but especially in the life movement, when you know what's at stake every single day with children dying, almost 4,000 every single day, is to say that winning for a party trumps that fight. That perhaps is not what he was saying. I just want to make sure our takeaway is not that. And we can also speak to each other in lecture form about what we think is the most important thing and make sure we are purifying our own party. I think we could very well win this election, but lose the war. And if by losing the fight for marriage and life, we would lose the war for the soul of this country. I think we've seen that happen before, and I think we could very well lose it now. We could win back the Senate, we could win the White House, and if we weaken on the fight for life and marriage, we will lose the entire battle. And what will it have been for? We will certainly lose power again after that, no question, on a political level. But more importantly, we will lose the cornerstone of civilization. We will lose everything that our founding fathers fought for, and we will lose almost 4,000 lives every day. So I would say winning is important, but our country is already with us on these issues, and there is no reason whatsoever to set them aside. Case number one, I would say, let's just take a look at what is happening with Planned Parenthood right now. When we think about weakening our backbone on the issues that we're talking about, let's look at who is not weakening their backbone. We are being asked to fund the #1 abortion provider in the nation, an organization that says that to reduce abortions, we need to increase contraception more and more and more every year, when the track record shows there's an inverse relation. Every year that contraception and family planning increases, the abortion rate also increases. It's a direct proportion, not inverse. This is an undeniable fact that happens every year. We are being asked to do this from a president who made it very clear from the beginning that he wanted us to fund abortion straightforward, and then he wants us to fund this abortion provider, the #1 in the nation. He was willing to shut down the federal government over this issue. Now in Indiana, he is willing to take away Medicaid funding for poor people over this issue. He is willing to take away every other potential benefit that the federal government would give over the abortion issue. Where are we? Where are our leaders? We are looking for leadership, are we not? If we're not looking for leadership, why are we here? Why are we traveling to Washington? Why are we building each other up in prayer and in confidence? When we're looking at the presidential field, we ought to be asking, how will you lead? How will you lead? Not how will you check off the box on several issues and assent to sign something if it comes to your desk. But how will you lead on a life issue? That is what we should be willing to ask. That's what we should be willing to demand as Catholics without question, as Americans. But let's just look at it as a political operative, which, many of us in the room are. It's not a dirty word. Being a political operative for the right reasons are not so bad, okay? As a political operative, why give up our 70-30 issue? They have everything right now. They have, on the life issue, they have everything. So why would we appease, why would we give up the fight on issues that we know that we have the consensus on? There's no reason in the world that we should do so. And so I guess, let me just close by saying, I think that we ought to really question our political leaders who say that winning is the most important thing when we think that possibly they mean setting aside issues that we think are going to make people uncomfortable, because it'll be despite the evidence, and it will be despite what we have just seen happen on the ground and what has taken over the body that is the most responsive to the will of the people, the U.S. House of Representatives. So thank you for the time.
Thanks, Marjorie. When Ralph asked us to put this panel together, we wanted to focus not just broadly on the issues that Maggie and Marjorie are so able to eloquently articulate, but we also wanted to include someone that has gone into the lion's den, into a state on the ground, and been successful talking about these issues. And that's our next panelist, Larry, who hails from the great state of New Jersey, up I-95. That was an easy applause line for me. I didn't realize there's so many people from Jersey here. You brought your own bus in, jeez. So we'll give you the floor in a little bit on it. So and Larry has been a grassroots activist for many years and critical in organizing Catholic voters on the ground on these important issues. So we'll turn it over to him to give us his perspective about what's going on and what we need to do going forward to be successful on these issues.
Thanks, Matt. For anybody that doesn't know me, you probably get an email from Larry Vote, and that's me. And I want to tell you that as a Catholic, I believe that we have a moral obligation to be participating in the political process. The bishops have said so. Some of them believe it. Unfortunately, I've specialized in the non-profit. These two ladies have been very successful in raising funds to make what we really want to happen. And I aspire to be that. We're to be a member of Legatus, which is the organization of Catholic business leaders that are able to organize and have enough employees to be part of that. This morning, Tony Perkins said, you can't fix fiscal unless you fix the family, and that's what this is all about. When Ralph talks about getting people out to vote and the importance, the unions have a very easy way to reach people. They reach them with their paychecks. And whether the union members like it or not, they give their money to Democrats and to push Democrat issues. The Republicans find their people in church. And while not all Catholics are pro-life and pro-family, the people who go to church are. I go to church every day. Give us our daily bread is one of our mantras. And I'm proud to say I'm a Catholic. I start some meetings off and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Larry, I'm a Catholic. And it's sort of like Al-Anon, you know, people say, hi, Larry. But I've done it in Boston. Did the marriage issue. I went down to Louisiana and helped Joseph Gao get elected as the first Vietnamese member of Congress in New Orleans. I've gone around the country a lot, and we find that if you actually go to the churches and find the activist in the parish, get the Sunday bulletin and figure out who's working in the parish, and get the word out in the parish that there's a difference between two candidates on the life and family issues, you can make a significant impact. 6 years ago, Scott Brown ran for a state senate race on presidential primary day with John Kerry on the ticket and won a state senate race by 313 votes. I know because I did the recount. The record now shows it's 349 votes because I'm very good at recounting. And you know, that obviously changed the world. And a few years later, when he became a U.S. senator. We'll never know what the impact is of each individual election, but they all do make a difference. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, this is getting a little tough, but could you all take out $1 out of your pocket? Take a look. I'd like you to take $1 out and take a look at $1 in your pocket. And while you're looking for that dollar, like I said, I specialize in non-profit. I want to tell you that, especially having done the elections in Louisiana, it's not who votes, but who counts the votes in Louisiana. It's sort of a sport. And so I've done recounts all over. But the reality is almost every election is decided not by the people who vote, but by the people who don't vote and the people who don't show up. The partisans are going to show up and they're going to vote, and Ralph would like to see a vote 30 days out. We hope to be able to promise people that if you vote 30 days out, we'll take you off the call list and you won't be bothered by phone calls for the last 2 weeks of the campaign. But 47% of the people in Florida voted before Election Day. And so that's going to be certainly something that we're hoping to do in the next election cycle, is to get a lot of the people to go out and vote. When only 70% max turn out, that means 30% of the registered voters don't vote. And most elections are decided by less than 5%. So really, the people who don't vote are the ones that make a decision. If you look at your dollar bill that I just talked about, it says, "In God we trust." And since the #1 issue is jobs and the economy and taxes, Catholics Two are concerned about fiscal issues. We're trying